Okay, we now live. Right. Louis, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. That's fine.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Female Educator Roundtable. Okay. Right. Oh, right. Okay. To another episode of the Female Education Roundtable. Are you hearing me? I'm echoing.
I'm hearing you. Slight echo, but I am hearing you.
I don't understand why.
Getting some feedback.
Okay. Right. I don't know what is causing the echo.
Do you want to stop it and start again? Lewis, I'm in a live recording. Lewis, I'm in a live recording.
Okay. Let's probably come off and come back on. I'm not too sure why my echo.
Yeah.
Okay. This is very strange. Louis, can you still see me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you and I'm seeing you.
Hi.
Hi, Miss.
It was echoing. I'm off, aren't I?
No, it didn't show.
Sorry?
It didn't show to me yet.
Okay. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. I have another guest from across the water, the Caribbean. This is the first episode of 2023. Oh my goodness, we are already in 2023. Okay, right, just having a few technical hitches. I think we've got over it. I'm not too sure what I have done, but we've got, it actually seems to be sorted itself out. So I don't know what's going on there, but we have. It says live streaming on Facebook. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, she's just, one of my people says she's not seeing me on Facebook. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. We're live on Facebook. I've just checked on my Facebook. And we're live on Facebook. Right. Sorry about all the hitch people. That's what happens when you're actually using technology. Sometimes it's fantastic, and sometimes we have these hitches right now. But I think we're over it. As I said, Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. as you know, on this platform, we do talk to female educators around the world, discussing some of the challenges and triumphs that they had during COVID and now is post-COVID. So how are they now navigating the new normal, or is it new at all? Right, so I've just come back on again to talk to educators, female educators, to discuss what the issues are and how things have changed, if at all, regarding themselves as educators and the students in their care. So this is the first episode of 2023, as I said. And I've kicked off with an educator from the Caribbean, which is fantastic. We are having rain over here while she's having the sunshine over there, right? And look, a big smile on her face, right? Yes, we're raining out here in London. So welcome, Louise. Thank you for actually accepting the invitation to come on to discuss post-COVID and what it was like for you in Jamaica and in the UK, because I know that you have taught some aspect in the UK as well. So first of all, introduce yourself, tell us your background, etc. Take it over.
Hi, everyone. My name is, I like to be called Louise, just simply Louise. Or some people know me as my former name, Louise George. I have been a mainly post-education FE lecturer, as well as other things, but mainly lecturing in many different FE colleges and in adult education, in prisons, in the community, and so on. And so I've worked for a long time. My career is very similar to Debbie's, working in various different institutions and colleges, etc., teaching a variety of subjects, health and social care, sociology, access mainly to young people, 16 to 19, and adults. And I've had many experiences of teaching and coordinating and working with young people who have support needs, who have mental health needs, etc. And then I moved to the Caribbean. But I still maintain a connection with the UK in terms of I often go back and teach part-time, etc., or short-term contracts. I also have contributed to working in the Caribbean, and particularly Jamaica, as what we call a National Education Inspector. So it's the same as Ofsted. They were trained by Ofsted and it's the same thing. So I would go in and we would cover schools across the island from primary to secondary, looking at all areas of the school life, from leadership and management, teaching and learning, behavior of students, well-being of students, health and safety, and basically the staffing quota in terms of whether the staffing meets the needs of the student, and very much the progression of the students. So it's very, very similar to Ofsted, same. And we would give a general report of the school performance over 2 days and write a report and feedback to the students and engage key stakeholders and talk to parents as well. So I've been doing that for some years. Haven't done it for a little while, but I'm still there. I've also worked with parenting groups in the community, teaching, excuse me, teaching various parenting groups in terms of improving their communication skills, understanding their role in engaging and teaching their children and empowering them to help their children learn and thrive, and looking at a kind of model, a kind of ideal parenting model in terms of what is, you know, what is the best or preferred parenting style, the most effective parenting style. So I've worked with, it's been government initiatives, government programs that have put forward this parenting program. And it's been quite interesting and quite successful. And more recently, I've worked with a very local community. Sorry about the interruption, Lewis. That's my son on his keyboard. He's gaming at the moment. Sorry. So I've worked with a very local community, which the communities up there, there's a lot of deprivation, there's a lot of unemployment, and this affects the children. And so there's a community organization, they get sponsorship from America, and they sponsor children in terms of their transport and getting to school and getting lunch. And I work with the parents of those children in looking at parenting initiatives and parenting workshops to enable them to support their child. So that's what, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of what I've been doing while I've been here. So it's very interesting to look at how the pandemic has affected the Caribbean and more so Jamaica here, and how they survived it. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to see. They've only been back at school around a year, because you can imagine that a smaller population, they've had to take lots of COVID measures to ensure the school population is safe, you know, from a health point of view, and almost trying to reduce the numbers, the COVID numbers. That was the strategy that was used. But of course, you've had large cohorts of children who've disengaged, who are no longer in school, who've been affected by this, and therefore they've been out of school for a long time. Some of them since grade 8, and most of them are now in grade 10, 11. So I think, as my son was telling me, I think the date that they went back was January 2021. So interventions that took place were things like psychosocial support for students.
When they came back to the school, that took place, or while they were?
During. Basically, what the government implemented was all schools have guidance counselors here. It's very much a welfare, pastoral, social work based role that, you know, that the person goes in and they have a core cohort of students that they may do counseling interventions with. There may be safeguarding issues that they have to deal with. Social work, it's very much social work based, but also there's a psychological support as well. So those guidance counselors ran a program of all different topics. They do that anyway in the school, but during COVID, it was very much psychosocial intervention and support. And it was things like keeping children safe online, cyberbullying, emotional well-being, how COVID has affected their school life, you know, looking at their own mental health, things like depression, isolation, anxiety, staying engaged in schools. And I do remember that they also had put on specific sessions for parents as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they did, with how to support your children and how to engage them and how to kind of look at the signs of not, you know, if there is any issues with children as well. And I mean, it's been hard because I think through that basically those students that were in grade 11 or the final year and had to take their exams, some of them were just like the UK, they didn't actually sit exams. I think the first year, I think it was their assessed work, the grades was taken from that. And so it's been very, very hard, very, very hard. So, you know, the students have been disrupted, and you have had some students that had real learning needs, real support needs that have not been addressed. And they've just, some have dropped out. And you can tell some have dropped out, they're doing things that they're working, maybe working illegally, and just, you know, because remember here, resources are very, very limited. So within each district, you'll have an education officer, and then you'll have schools, and then you'll have guidance counselors, etc., who may take on board these issues. And within all of that, a lot of children will fall by the wayside.
Right. So what have been in place in terms of those students that have fallen by the wayside? Is there anything in terms of support them to get them back into schools? What's the situation?
There are some interventions, there are community-based things, and as I said, it's down to resources, etc. Because I know there are literacy and numeracy programs, and there was some workshops in the community, because I think one of the issues when the pandemic first started was a lot of parents couldn't necessarily get books and access to the internet, because in a country like Jamaica and the Caribbean, not everybody has internet. So where their learning takes place mainly at the school or in an internet cafe, etc., where they may go and do their homework, etc. So if all those things were shut, learning was very, very difficult to engage in lessons. So I think you had cohorts of people who were employed to just engage students back again and working in the community. And I think there were kind of places set up where people could come and go and continue their education. Libraries, community centers. I know there were church halls where internet was set up, etc. And there were some schools open, but it was those that could afford to stay open, you know, because as I said, a lot of places in the community did not have access to the internet.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that, Louise. So in terms of you in the UK, right? You know, when were you in the UK when COVID first started, the first lockdown?
When COVID started, I was living in the West Midlands, and I was at a local college there, and it was, I think we were told like a week or so, you know, this is what's happening, and everyone hurriedly packed up their desk, etc. And then it was right. We just transferred to online learning. Now, my role at the time was very much, although it was a teaching role, it was academic support. I used to run workshops for students. So those workshops kind of a bit continued online, but during the pandemic, during those early stages of the pandemic, from sort of like February, March, it was March to like the end of the academic year, that year, I think, which was 2020, it was really chasing students for work. That's what the college were concerned with. It was chasing students. Yes, it was making sure they completed and achieved the qualification. But in those days, I don't think there was enough emphasis on student well-being, because many students became very isolated. Remember, the college, the school was their place to socialize, to engage, to interact with one another. So now suddenly all that was taken away. They was just in their room learning. And that was hard, you know, so some just totally disengaged, some fell off the course. It was hard, it was very hard. So my thing was I had to develop action plans, learning plans for a lot of students, which some achieved and some did not.
That's expected though, because, you know, during the pandemic, like yourself, I was teaching as well, and then we transitioned to online. And as we know, online wasn't doing it because there were not people engaging. You know, computers were on, but there was nobody at home, basically. And it was really because I was coming all excited, etc. and the student they were not really interested. And then I had a teenager myself who I had to, in between me teaching online, have to dash upstairs to see if he's engaging on his lesson. And half the time he's not. Half the time he's lying on his bed or he's playing on his computer while having the computer on. So he's playing on his laptop. So while he has the screen on, listening on, and I'm saying to him, are you taking it? He said, do you realize sometimes I'm one of 3 students that's there, Mom? I said, okay. So it's like all of that. And I'm saying to him, you need to be more engaged. And he's saying to me, how can he be more engaged when there's nobody there? And the thing about it is, in a lot of schools, the teachers were not even coming on face. So the student didn't even see the face. So therefore, that even reduced the level of engagement.
That's right. I think you hit the key word there, engagement. And it was hard because a lot of students weren't used to this platform of learning. It was, as my son said, it affected them in terms of, dealing with, it was hard to learn. It wasn't really interactive and very little support, feedback. And there was frustration from that, and that affected his motivation.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have done the pandemic, post-pandemic. What's the effect right now in terms of the children, the young people in our care? How do you think the schools are really supporting these young people in relationship to post-pandemic? Something I've asked most teachers is, how have we transitioned now into the classroom? Now that we had 2 lockdowns, one where it was totally online, another one that was hybrid, etc. So what is it like now? Okay, we know 2022, we've just started. Let's say 2022. What was it like in 2022 when we all went back in 2021? You guys went back later. So what was it like for the children who we know supposedly teaching in a different format? Or have we been teaching them in a different format? Or have anything changed? For me, it haven't changed, as if we had nothing. I don't know about you, right? I'm no longer in college, I'm now in schools. And I'm thinking, okay, it doesn't seem as if we had this major disruption in young people's life, as if nothing have changed. I don't know for you, but for me, I've gone through different schools because I don't teach in one school. I go from school to school because agency, etc. So I've seen a lot of schools and I've seen no difference. They haven't, nobody seems to think that the pandemic have taken place. What's your experience of it? You seem to be nodding in agreement.
I think basically from my recent teaching experience in the UK, which was a few weeks back, I think that some of the students told me, to be honest, Louise, during the pandemic, I didn't learn anything. I just switched off after a while. They found it very difficult to engage. And I think as a result of that, they're just coming back on board, and still for some of them, it's difficult to engage because there's other issues that they're dealing with, other mental health issues. And I've seen for some young people, their attention span is very short, and you need to constantly be keeping them engaged and doing different things and looking at their different learning styles and all these different things. It's teaching has become very, very hard. And you have to, whatever topic you're teaching, you have to provide various different stimulus and really know the personality styles of your students. I mean, that's one of the things with me. I like to get to know my students in terms of, what is she or he about? And I can tell so much from the nonverbal communication and the emotional intelligence that I receive. Wow, her body language is saying, I can't take this anymore. And when the hand goes up to say, Louise, can I go to the toilet? That what she's really saying is, I can't take this. This is too much for me. I need to get out of here. So we need to be aware of those things. We really need to be aware of it. I've tuned in so much, and I'm also studying counseling. And so I've tuned in so much in terms of how students, you know, in terms of their well-being, because it's much more than just the learning. The learning is, you know, it's much more than that. It's how they engage in the process. And, you know, a lot of colleges and schools are so focused on performance and achievements. You know, we have to get them through. We have to make sure they achieve this qualification. We have to make sure they apply to university by a certain date. And a lot of them are not that, they're just not at that stage. They're not ready. They need time out. They need other things. You know, they need to engage in a much more holistic learning experience. That means that some of them may go to university later. Some of them may want to do apprenticeships. Some of them may want to do work-based learning. Some of them may just need time out, you know. Who said that they need to achieve this qualification in this prescribed time period?
I totally get that, and I totally agree with you there. And I think for us who've actually have the counseling background, we are much able to identify some of the students that they're not even interested in you teaching them, right? Because it's like, I need time out. This is too much for me, you know, I'm out. But the sad thing about it is a lot of schools have not tuned into that, because as you say, result. So they're so programmed in getting the results that therefore, in my view, that they're forgetting the needs of these children from who they need to get the result from.
Right.
You see, they're forgetting we need to fix the student up in order to get the result. If we don't fix them, sort the mental health out, we won't get the results.
That's right. And there's so much pressure to perform. I saw, even in just one term, how the attendance dipped for some students. It dipped, came back up. I'll just give an example of a young man I had who was very, very astute, always sat at the front, always engaged, etc. And at some point, he just left the class. His attendance went. He just didn't engage for some time, despite contacting him frequently. And I think what happened was the students were doing their UCAS applications, and for him, that wasn't what he wanted. That wasn't for him. He, you know, he wanted a more work-based route. And so I think he felt real pressure to do this, and that affected his mental health. And I encouraged him to come back, and he did come back. And he said, I don't know if I want to do, you know, I said, you don't have to do a university application. You know, you may decide to do an apprenticeship or just find work, you know. And again, it goes back to the performance, always the performance that we push students for. And that's not necessarily, you know, we can measure achievement in so many different ways.
Exactly. I so agree with that. Because you see, for a lot of schools, the achievement is the results, right? And the sad thing is, the students are so programmed that they cannot see anything else. Because most of the school I've been into, they seem to have forgotten that we've had a pandemic and students are not where the expectation is, because they have not been dealt with according to the needs. And it's like, you're meant to be getting this, and you know exactly what you said, you're meant to be getting them through. And I'm saying, my argument always is, I hear you, but we need to look at the individual young person before we try getting them through. As I constantly say, one of the things I say all the time is that when the students come to us, they come to us with a backpack on the back, which is full of issues. And when we are actually taking out the things out of the backpack, right, we have to not just take them out and throw them out, we have to take them out and assess them and see what support we need to give the things in the backpack. And it's so, I'll say that you'll be disrupted. And it's so interesting that one of the issue in that, one of the things in that backpack, it's not academic, you know, because they're not ready for academic yet. They need to be looked at in terms of the emotional needs need to be addressed. And that's not being done.
Nope.
You know, so in terms of the schools you've been in the UK, right? Do you feel that, or the colleges rather, do you feel that a young person's needs are being addressed to an extent? Or, you know, what did the students say to you in terms of, you know, you teaching them? Because I know when I went back, I was the only one that said to me who asked them how they were, because all of the teacher was concerned about this achievement. So they have no time to find out the well-being of the students. And teachers are failing to realize that when you just take a few minutes out of that lesson time and find out how the students are, you would get more in the end because you sort them out and then you now move on. But when you have not sort them out, all you get is the disruption, the chatting, the demonstrating how they're feeling, you know, things like that. You know, what have been your experience in terms of, you know, colleges?
Definitely, I agree with you. I always in my lessons sort of ask, how are we feeling? Do a mood check, get them to think about maybe 3 words to describe how they're feeling at that moment and maybe some of the issues that's affecting them. And I found in doing that, you know, they're much more likely to engage. And sometimes even during the process of teaching, if I'm picking up from their body language and from how they're engaging, they're just sitting there and there's rote learning, I stop my lesson. I totally stop. I don't care. I totally stop and say, okay, then we're going to stop doing this. Let's deal with what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that's what I do.
Yeah. But do you find, thank you for that, do you find that not every teacher do those kind of a checking in?
Yeah, because we, you know, it's very much performance and the pressure is on the teacher to fit, you know, complete that curriculum, to finish, you know, make sure their lessons are being delivered, prepare students for assessment, summative, formative, for exams, for give out assignments, etc. And I found, particularly with my lower level students, the curriculum plan said I must give out an assignment on this day and I must hand it, they must hand it back in at that day, and they're not there. They really have been affected adversely and they are not there. So therefore what happened was, I've been in the middle of teaching and so many different issues just come up. And so learning is it's very slow, and there's other things that they want to bring to the table. And how do you do that as a teacher or a lecturer? How do you do that? How do you cross the T's and dot the I's and get your students to make progress without looking at their own needs, their individual needs, their mental health needs, their emotional needs, their psychological needs? How do you do that? Because if we're just producing the statistics and the numbers all the time, then what happens to them as individuals, particularly if, like the subjects we teach, you know, which is sociology, psychology, health and social care, we're preparing them to work with other people, you know, and go into helping professions. They need to be emotionally intelligent and emotionally ready for those types of careers.
And do you feel, thank you for that, and do you feel that the school, the education system, do you think that the education system is failing that aspect of the young person?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is you and I know how much resources there are. There's counselors, there's learning support, there's you know, there's safeguarding officers. There's so many different individuals whose job role it is to support students and to help them. Yet still, if you look at the statistics, there's still a large percentage of students not engaging. Because even though there are these things, the ultimate goal is to perform. And if you're not performing at the time at which the education system says you should be performing, psychologically, you're seen as a failure.
Yeah, and then it then have the adverse effect on that young person, because then we have the self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, aspect of not feeling good enough, and the cycle continues. You see, and I think that also starts from the point that COVID didn't help them, right? The children that was unable to achieve high level, etc. COVID didn't help that. So we have them going back. And not only are they dealing with the fact that the academic inability to perform, we also have the fact that the mental health issue has just actually come across.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been difficult. And then the thing for us as educators, it then is very difficult to teach, because when you first start a new assignment, for me, the first thing I need to do is get to know the personalities of the group I'm teaching. Never mind the subject area, that's the easy bit. I need to understand the personalities and the dynamics of the groups that I'm teaching. You know, where are they coming from? Who are the dominant forces? Who has particular needs? Who, you know, just the personalities. And then once I've mastered that, then that's fine. But until I've mastered that, it's an uphill challenge.
Yeah. It is so true, because I could identify with that. Because I often say in my programs, etc., if I could actually teach a young person, I need to sort the mind out as much as I can. Because in order for me to have them, I need to make sure that the mental health is where it should be as much as possible, because there would be no engagement if I'm teaching academics, because they're not interested in that. So before we could teach academically, I feel that we need to actually sort out the mental well-being of that young person before we come across academically. And what I find that a lot of schools, the academic aspect is at the top of the agenda, right? And if you're not meeting that at the top of the agenda, you know, you will have constantly being criticized by the powers that be, because as far as they're concerned, you know, you're not meeting the target again. You're not meeting the target. But my thing is, well, I hear that, but I need to make sure the student is where they are, because there's no point in you telling me I don't meet the target. The people who need to give you the target are the students who are broken.
That's right.
You know, so what do you feel we can, let me just rephrase that. What can we do as educators in terms of the way forward with the young people we have in our care?
I think there certainly needs to be more psychological interventions on student well-being, and whether that's through named persons like safeguarding officers or pastoral support, learning support. There's that, and which in turn means more training for educators on supporting students through the issues to deal with the pandemic and their own individual issues. But I think it's until we kind of look at the more wider curriculum and look at education holistically, those things are, you know, not going to happen, because the colleges and the school have got the resources. They've got the resources, they've got the personnel to do it. But until there's enough time given to do those things, you know, because you've got your lessons, you've got your tutorial, you've got all of those things to pack in. But how much time is actually dedicated to that? Most of the time, it's if a student has a particular need, they are then referred and might just have a one-to-one once a week, or if they're getting learning support, etc. So relevant referrals and support needs to be made in terms of mental health and well-being, but it's also training the educators to identify the needs.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Identification. It's like there's a course called Mental Health First Aid in the UK. And I strongly recommend that every school should have enough mental health first aider in the same way you have first aiders, right? Let's say you have 10 first aiders, you should also have 10 mental health first aiders in every school. Because I feel it is so important because you enable the mental health first aider to identify when a student really need the support, because not a lot of educators are trained to be able to identify those things. So a lot of the students are going unidentified.
Right, right. And it's interesting here where there's limited resources in the Caribbean, they have implemented this psychosocial support lessons within the curriculum just to identify if there are any issues, to give students the space to discuss those issues and to bring those issues to the table. But I think within our system, within the UK, there isn't that. There isn't so much of that.
Yeah, well, I don't know so much. I would say the schools I've attended, I have not seen it. Right, is because of my experience and my background, I'm able to identify and then make referral. But before I actually see the student, they've been taught by other teachers already who don't know how to identify.
Right.
So therefore, you know, as you said, if the schools in the UK, they had the same setup that was in Jamaica, it means that we would have less, you know, less mental health issue with these young people, because we'll be able to identify the issues much faster. But right now we're not, because they're going on, because some, you know, it's like some school I go to, when I'm speaking to the student, they say, oh, nobody have asked us that. Hold on, we've been back now almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Which means these students are actually festering this because they don't know what to do with this emotion. They don't know how to regulate it. So
and then soon we expect them to go out to the world of work.
Exactly. And we expect them to give us the grades we required.
Right.
It's you know, one of my recommendations to all the schools I've been going to is, you know, you need to take on the course of mental health first aid, you know, and make sure that you have enough staff who are trained in mental health first aid, the same way you have first aiders. Some of them look at me as if I've said something wrong. And I have to say to them, yes, but you guys know this course is there. So, you know, you need to tap into the course and make sure that the educators are trained in order to identify. One of the schools I spent one term in one school, my last school I've been in. And that one of the schools, I must say, I really rate that school. It's a school in North London. I rate that school very, very highly in my book because they were really tapping into the mental health issue of the students. And in terms of the mental health first aid, they were making sure that enough staff is being trained, because even the week before we broke up, there was running the course and they were insisting that, oh, we need X amount of teachers to come onto this course, etc. And I think that's very good, because some of the schools don't even acknowledge there's a need for that.
Right.
You know. So
true.
Sorry?
It's very true.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the way forward, what would you suggest in terms of the way forward, and in terms of 3 tips you would give in relationship to the way forward?
Well, as I said, I think we probably need more trained key personnel or key persons who are trained in, you know, yes, we've got counselors, but I don't know if the learning support role, we need specialist mental health support advisors who work with young people, you know, who are, as well as dealing with the academic side, but also dealing with the mental health as well. I don't know, they call them emotional well-being people. Certainly more training for staff in identifying these things, you know, any issues that students, children may have in terms of adverse mental health issues, etc. And I think for educators to make appropriate referrals. And that maybe we need to also educate parents in terms of it's okay if your child is not necessarily achieving when they say they should be achieving.
You know, that is so important. Thanks for that. Because I think that parents are so programmed to feel that their child needs to achieve this at so and so time. And another aspect of programming for some parents, when you actually mention apprenticeship, they look at you as if you have spoken at, you know, a bad word, that you've said a bad word in terms of encouraging them to encourage the children to do apprenticeship. Because not every child is geared for the academic route.
That's right.
And even a lot of apprenticeship, they are actually able to go to university 1 day a week to still achieve that degree. And this is an area I do feel that parents are not educated enough in knowing, well, these are alternatives to going through the academic route. And guess what? Your child would even be better off going through the apprenticeship route, i.e. they'll have a job with also a degree in some cases. So which means there are two things. And they wouldn't be coming out with so much debt. Whereas because parents are so programmed in terms of the academic route, they don't care what degree the child done, as long as the child goes to university.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You're perfectly right.
And then you're thinking, should this be the case? But that has to do with a lot of issues from the school and the sixth form that is actually programming those children. As I said to my students when I left the school, I said, do you realize the school not even interested in you after you've got them the qualification, you know? They just want the qualification that you are meant to deliver to them, whether or not it's GCSE or A-level, and that's it. So the pressure is on for you to deliver those qualifications to them.
That's
and when you've done,
grade.
Exactly. And when you've done, forget it. I don't care whether or not you have mental health issue going into the university. They're not interested. Their job is already done. They already got the qualification from you. And it is very, very sad that this is what the schools are on.
And, you know, we have the job role of kind of picking up the pieces and kind of, you know, because it's more than teaching. We all know that. It's more than teaching, you know. It's mentoring, it's coaching, it's counseling, it's social work, it's psychological interventions.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just say one thing or two things just for us to sum up?
Can I just say two things?
Yes,
Oh, well, really? I thought you said, can I? Sorry. Well,
No,
I think going forward, we need to identify, you know, students that some of the issues that's been raised post-pandemic, that students, you know, some of them will learn and engage in a whole different way. And we need to recognize that, you know. As my son said, it took him some time to adjust back to face-to-face. He then became used to just being on the computer all the time. So we need to recognize some of the effects of that and the whole different ways that children learn, young people learn in terms of their learning styles. You know, we need to do that. And also, I think just be more aware of the psychology of learning and how that applies to individuals, really, as educators.
I totally agree with you there. And I do feel that educators need to deprogram themselves instead of just, following the programming by the school or sixth form prescriptively. They need to actually step off a little bit and ask themselves, do I deal with these children, these young people, mental health before I start the academic? Something you say, which was really fantastic, that you stop your lesson and you say, okay, what are the issues here? Some teachers, instead, when they see the disruption, they're actually blaming the child instead of looking at the bigger picture, because they have not even realized that, hold on, this behavior stems from, these children have been locked down, and none of them have had counseling to address the readjustment into the school. Because your son says something really fantastic in terms of, now I have to readjust going back into the physical classroom. And no one is actually addressing that and not realizing that those are some of the factors that are leading to the disruptive behavior we're seeing. And some teachers, like you and I, would stop our lesson mid-air, stop, let's deal with this. But not every teacher is maybe confident enough.
That's right. Empowered enough to do that.
Yeah.
It's feeling that they must complete certain, certain learning achievement by a certain time.
Yeah. And I think in order to, another forward point in terms of moving forward, these educators need to be empowered and to feel that it is okay. Stand by your conviction no matter what. Because I'm one of these teachers, I stand by my conviction no matter what. My main thing is the student well-being and mental health issue is far more important to me than the academic achievement of the students. And I think that as educators, that's my view on this, I feel that we owe that to the young people to protect their mental health far more than protecting the academic ability of the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Louise, for coming on board. It's been a fantastic session, and there have been a lot of nuggets you've actually dropped. And it's really interesting, because one of the things I didn't even, look at in great depth is, stopping your lesson mid. Well, my lessons is in chunks. I teach in chunks, and then we have brain break, right? So therefore, it accounts for that. And in terms of teachers not empowered enough to say, okay, I'm going to stop my lesson. Let's deal with what you're not presenting in this classroom. And there's a lot of things that is presented. And sadly, a lot of teachers, educators feel that, oh, this child is being disruptive, I'm going to send them out. But that does not resolve the issue, because the child doesn't want sending out. The child wants you to be empathetic to their needs, which is a crying for help. I don't know how to navigate my emotion. Please help me and show me how to do that. So my behavior is a demonstration of help me navigate that.
Right.
So that is in schools. It's we could go on and on and on, because one of the things I feel that we need to do is go in schools and educate the schools, because I do feel that the school needs educating in the mental health aspect of these children, young people, and making it a priority other than the academic. Because as soon as you get that sorted, the academic comes very, very quickly. And there will be no missing out. As soon as you fix the mental health, or where they are, the academic is very, very quick. So you won't even miss it. You won't even realize that you've wasted time on that, but you've taken time out. Anyway, thank you very, very much for coming on, as I've just said. And is there one thing you want to leave us with before we close?
Think about the children or young people that you teach and the issues they may bring to the classroom and how that affects their learning.
Right. I could just reinforce that, because that's very, very true. You know, we need to find the young person before we implement the academic. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening on, whether or not you're listening on the live or you're going to look at the replay. It is important that you guys actually tune into that, because there's a lot of these things that parents are not aware of, and even educators themselves are not aware of. Also, you could tune in onto my YouTube channel. I've got all of this uploaded there and on my Facebook profile. If there are any educators out there who wants to come on the channel, just DM me. And yes, that's no problem, because we've got so many issues there. On Saturday, I look at the female educators. I only just discuss female issues and how we as female navigate the education system. On Friday, I have oh my goodness, I've forgotten. On Friday, I have home education or homeschooling, because I do feel that we need to embrace that. And during COVID, there have been an increase in home education and homeschooling. And I do feel that we need to, I said, embrace it, champion it, etc. And on a Friday, we have, you know, people who've gone through the process and discussing it, some of the pitfalls, some of the triumph, which is a lot of triumph. So that's what I do on a Friday. And on a Sunday, we look at mental health of the young people and the teachers. So, you know, I might have counselors coming on, or pastoral care, or mentors, you know, to identify how can we support the young people. So all of this is giving educators and parents suggestions and advice as to how they could help these young people. Because believe me, these young people need help. They might appear as if they're okay, and we tend to say, oh, they're resilient. They're resilient, but they're human beings as well, with emotions, which we need to start addressing. Because we seem to just use resilience as a cop-out, not identifying that as much as they're resilient, they're also human beings with emotions and feelings. So we need to start addressing that instead of ignoring the underlying factor which these young people are going through. So I urge parents to tap into your young person, parents, carers, guardian, whoever. As long as you're connected with a young person, I urge you to sit and talk with them, because a lot of them is not just going to talk to you just like that, because they're already going through issues of being a teenager, and that is coupled with what they're going through. We need to reach out to them. We need to meet them where they are. It's important. We need to reduce the increase in mental health among young people, and it's galloping in terms of the increase. We need to do that. I cannot stress enough the importance of we tapping into these young people. You need to go to them, they're not going to come to you. They feel that they don't need, there's nothing wrong with them, but we know there is. Because just think, they've been locked down for all this time, and these are people who like going out, and they're all snob about going out, and all of a sudden you say, oh, no more going out, stay inside, in a cage. So we need to look at that. Anyway, people, take care, stay blessed. As you guys know, I'm a talker. I could talk for the next 24 hours. Anyway, take care, stay blessed. Have a fantastic evening, morning, night where you are. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.